So what does all this mean for TCBs? More spectrum means more devices. The sophistication of the devices is going to continue to grow. We went from, when you think about it, devices that operated in single frequency bands, they were more or less one-trick ponies, to devices that operated across multiple bands, to devices that are no longer just phones, but almost mini computers. What we're going to see, I think, in the future is going to pale what we're already seeing. One of the major manufacturers comes in, and I'm sure some of you have seen this, and they put in front of me a box about this big, and they said, it's almost like the clowns coming out of the car. You can't believe there's that much in there. And there's 8, 9 radios in this single device. And I can only guess that there'll be more. And they're going to have all sorts of combination of frequency bands. Before, what we were dealing with was the PCS bands at 1.9 and the cellular bands at 800. So now we've added a little bit more with the advanced wireless service bands. But when you think about it, we've now, the advanced wireless service 1 band really hasn't been rolled out in full yet. The 700 megahertz bands haven't been rolled out in full yet. And then we've got all these other bands that I've been talking about that will be made available. So I think you're going to see all sorts of combinations of frequency bands and technologies. The smart antennas are going to proliferate, and it's driven by a need for efficiency. It's embedded in the evolutionary path for both WiMAX and LTE. So as we're packing more and more in the spectrum, the devices are going to have to use techniques that make more efficient use of the spectrum, which I think complicates a little bit the measurement methods that we use to show compliance. And we're going to see more, whether you call it smart radios, software-defined radios, cognitive radios, opportunistic radios, it's just going to mean more complex test protocols. We're also going to see new generations of products. We've only just started to scratch the surface for wireless medical devices. When you talk to some of the people in the medical industry, your jaw just drops because the capabilities there for detecting problems before they occur and what that can improve the health for our lives and reduce medical costs. And wireless is a key part of that. We're working with the FDA. One of the things that we're planning is to hold a workshop with FDA and a public notice about how can we provide more certainty for the process of a device that may be thought of primarily as wireless but has healthcare applications. What are the obligations relative to the FDA approval process and the FCC approval process? Wireless devices for the smart grid, both to get from the network to the homes, and then when you're inside the homes, the wireless networks that are there to manage your energy consumption. I've told folks that's fine just as long as my scale doesn't talk to my refrigerator. So, and machine-to-machine communications. Some of the things that you'll see at the shows, and nobody really notices these things, but in the old days, vending machines, you'd have a service provider come around, and once a week they went and they filled up whatever was out. Now the machines can talk back, and they say things have just been fine. I'm not out of stuff. Don't come this week. Or before the week goes by, everything's gone. Come back and fill me up again. Can all be done wirelessly. Even the old jukeboxes where you can go around and pop in the records or the CDs, now you just download all the music. So you've got all of these other applications that can be conducted over the wireless networks that are no longer just it's the same technology, but it's not phones anymore. So maybe we'll be putting jukeboxes and vending machines up on those turntables and rotating them. And there's a growing focus on RF exposure. There's part of the reason for that is not just the cell phones, but people have this sense of we've got all these different wireless devices out there, and it creates anxiety. So some topics to consider going forward, and I'm really not looking for answers to all of these right now, but we made changes in the KDB process, and we're hoping that you're finding that helpful. The very notion of the similarities to rulemaking, of we are telling you here's the decision we plan to make, and getting feedback before it's all locked in is something that that kind of interaction that we hadn't done before. How well is the permit but ask working? It was a way for us to get out from under just setting flat lines and saying, here, everything has to come into us. We were trying to shift as much as we can off and retain the things that we still are concerned about. How can we advance transparency and openness of our process? One of the things that's going on in the Commission, and Chairman Janikowski is very supportive of, he's encouraging me, all our offices, to take advantage of the new technologies that are being introduced. So it's not just about what's going on with folks, we should be participating as well. So what more can we do for using new media? Would blogs be helpful? Or is what's going on with the KDB the best way to get out information? Should we try to have internet sessions where instead of the workshops that maybe we have a couple times a year, maybe they're not full workshops, but maybe we have a session where there can be a dialogue. What are the best ways to disseminate information about the program? And lastly, how do we better protect confidential information? It's very easy to have something go awry. You all know very well that there are people who are, they watch everything that comes out of our database. So you're playing with somebody's trade secrets, and even if the intent was to protect it, if something goes awry, once it's out, everybody's got access to it. Even if there's only a few incidents like that, that's a few too many. So we really want to take a close look as well as that process, and the more things that we can do to safeguard confidential information. So that's it. Congratulations on the 10th anniversary of the program. I tip my hat to all of you. We couldn't be doing this without you at this point. So, and I'd be happy to take some questions. They're stunned.
One of the things I see is certainly the first thing when I saw your chart of how more or less there's a 10% growth in grants every year, and you're seeing decline with the stuff the FCC does, is it's certainly obvious that the knowledge for this process is actually more within this group here than it is, well, with you guys. Why don't you go and have the guys at the lab come out here and join this? They can go and sit in with the sessions like everybody else. Probably the council will be happy to go and give them a freebie too.
All right, well, I mean, from what I've seen, a lot of them are here, but, but we can talk about that.
I have a question. Where in your process is the recognition that better is the deadly enemy of good enough? All throughout the history of radio technology in this country, there's always been some kind of an economic balance struck between the cost of compliance to technical standards and the availability of systems. You mentioned quite correctly the concern about confidentiality. We have another concern. You mentioned, RF exposure. In the presentations that have been given in the last few days, one of the things that struck me as an engineering manager is the stunning degree to which we are overemphasizing small and very expensive details, and that we have to have a process that more effectively weighs the cost of compliance relative to the price of nonconformance. If there's no EMC or safety problem, we need not be innovating standards mandating deeper and more profound testing. This is one way to get out from underneath this excessive growth and complexity causing a regulatory problem. You need to have some institutional mechanism in place to evaluate cost effectiveness of required tests.
Without having heard all of the prior discussion, it would help to have specifics about the things you feel are pushing it too far so that we can balance it. You have to give them to me now, but
Off the top of everyone's head, it would have to be the degree to which SAR testing has grown into a monster.
okay.
It's almost technically surrealistic just to even list the flavors that are required for a phone. And as we go deeper and deeper into this, the sophistication of the process is growing exponentially, not linearly. And at some point, it's going to take longer to go through the test scenarios than the life of the phone itself. We may already be there.
Well, I'll talk with Rashmi and the staff. I still think it would be helpful to try and define those boundaries, but let me push back on the other side a little bit. People expect that when the products are put on the market, that they're safe. And it's not just an issue for you. From our standpoint, we can't trade off margins of safety for a desire to just move stuff out the door. So somewhere there has to be a balance here. And I hear you about the cost effectiveness and how much is, at what point do those additional tests not really gain you anything? So I think what we should try to do is work together to better define those boundaries. But it's not going to get any easier because of the nature of the devices and just trying to figure out what the usage models are. Where we were was it was used this way or maybe on the head or on the hip. And for the most part, when it was on the hip, we knew when we were on the phone. Now the devices are transmitting and the user doesn't know it. So it is a challenge. And I think we should have a dialogue trying to figure out how we better define these boundaries. Well, look, thank you all very much. Appreciate your participation in this, and we look forward to continue to work with you. And I know we've got a good part of the staff in the back. Okay? Thanks.